Welcome to episode 6 of the all-wheel drive Mustang project. After being a little slow getting that bell housing modified, I actually made great progress over the last couple of weeks. Basically making version 2.0 and the final version, as far as I can tell, of the transfer case adapter, the piece that goes between the C5 Vet tail housing of the TR6060 and the Dodge Charger transfer case. But we'll get right into it here and see how it goes. The first step in making the new adapter was basically fly cutting the stock to size. Started out with 3/4 inch 6061 and fly cut it. Really, it's actually a face mill down to 5/8. Then proceeded, I somehow missed the footage, I lost the footage that shows the machining of the center hole and the countersinks for the 3 bolts you see to hold it to the tail housing. What you see here is I programmed in all the locations for all the 8mm holes that hold the transfer case to the adapter. And I'm just going through and pre-drilling all the holes before tapping them later on. But it all went fairly smooth. I use Fusion 360 to get all the locations, and makes it a lot easier than programming them in one at a time. Basically use Fusion for most of this programming, with the exception of a few pockets. So here I'm putting all the holes in. You can see there was quite a few for all the various locations for the transfer case adapter. And now I'm putting in the tap drill hole for a 10mm bolt. This is the last bolt that actually holds the adapter to the tail housing. So this is a drill diameter for 10mm. The rest of them are for 8 for the transfer case. Here I'm actually drilling the holes for the 2 dowel pins that actually locate and accurately position the transfer case to the adapter. The rest of the holes, of course, are just tapped and clearanced. So here I'm drilling the 2 holes, and they'll come back here in a second and I'll ream them to size for better accuracy. So here we go. This is just a 5/16 reamer, taking out a few thousandths from the previously drilled holes. This actually went fairly well, the whole reaming operation. I'm pretty excited about that. It came out really accurate to size. So we basically have the first machining operation done. The main bore here that locates it to the tail housing is done and fits really well. I did do a practice mock-up already by putting it on here. And then basically the mounting holes that go to that and all the rest of the mounting holes are all drilled and tapped. And so now I need to take it off the mill, make a fixture plate to bolt it to, so I can then do the perimeter without machining into my vice jaws, I guess. This is the fixture plate I made to machine the perimeter of the part. You can see I fly cut it smooth and then drilled and tapped 3 holes here that I'll use to bolt the part to. Here's the part bolted to the fixture plate. You can see I'm just using the same screws that would hold it to the tail housing, and getting it all set up, and I'll start machining the outside. Here I'm machining the perimeter of the adapter. I set it up in Fusion 360 using it did basically 2 vertical steps of 2D adaptive, and then came back at the end and did one continuous cut around the outside to make it look nice. I'm using a 3/4 inch special aluminum optimized end mill here, and it really takes great cuts. I could have been probably way more aggressive. Here I'm doing a final 2D contour around the whole perimeter of the part as one continuous cut, just to make it look nice basically. Once again, could have been way more aggressive with my feeds and speeds, but I guess slow and steady wins the race. I wasn't in a big hurry, and I just wanted it to work, and not get any welding on the tool or anything. And as you can see, it's doing a very good job, and the whole part turned out really quite excellent. I was really trying to make it really better than it had to, as kind of its own little experiment, getting the thickness to be within a couple thou, and the perimeter, and getting all the hole locations, just like the reaming of the double pin hole locations. It was kind of my own personal challenge here to make the part as good as I could, is kind of stretching my abilities on machining and using the machine, really more importantly, and using Fusion. Like I said earlier, I used Fusion to get all the drill holes, which could have easily been programmed one at a time, but it was just a new experiment to try to push the envelope of using the tool, using the machine. And it, as you can see, it was doing quite well and came out quite nice. Here's the completed part, still on the fixture. I think it turned out great, and I've already verified that the bolt pattern fits everything before I did the outside perimeter. So, and it fits the tail housing perfectly. So, pretty excited. I'll get it out to fixture and start mocking stuff up. Wasn't quite ready with the main adapter piece. I had to drill and tap the ends for the transmission mount. To make the base of the transfer case adapter, I started with this block of aluminum, had to cut it to length. This is actually my modified, probably 15-year-old now, Harbor Freight bandsaw that I converted to cut metal by putting a comically large couple of pulleys on it to slow it down to metal type speed. Here I am just squaring up the stock and making it to size to make the transmission mount that bolts onto the main adapter. Just squaring up all 6 sides using a combination of the face mill and a 3/4 inch end mill. Here I'm using some 2D adaptive to rough out the slot. Did it in 3 passes, once again being pretty conservative, and then eventually did one final pass on each side, just a simple 2D cut to make it look good. You'll see coming up. But it all went pretty well. I'm using a 4-flute cutter, which really isn't the greatest for a slot like this, but with enough air. And I really had no issues with any welding of aluminum to the end mills in any of these operations. I was really concerned about that. That's why I was so conservative. But I just kept on blowing the chips out and using some WD-40, and it really was not an issue. And here I am mocking up the adapter into the mount, and as you can see, it fits pretty well. Now I'm drilling the 2 clearance holes for the 2 mount bolts, and these aren't really precise. They're just, like I said, clearance holes. And now I'm making the 2 side holes that'll cross bolt the mount to the adapter. And here I am once again using the same 3/8 end mill to make some countersinks for the socket-headed cap screws, and a little bit of air, a little bit of WD-40, and everything went quite smooth. So here's the basic theory behind the transfer case adapter and the transmission mount. Basically, to try to be efficient on material, the vast majority of the adapter is started out as 3/4 inch thick material, but is now 5/8 thick. And then I obviously machined this adapter. You've seen in the previous parts of the video. This thing goes on here like this. Oh, well, let me show you this first. So these are actually clearance holes, and this has been clearanced here for a socket-headed cap screw, and it'll bolt through, and it's a tight fit here, and thread into the back, and then basically it'll clamp onto here. And of course, this is the same width as the transmission mount to act as a lateral stability. Then there's clearance holes here for the actual transmission mount that go down into the main body here. And as you can see, the actual transfer case bolts all the way down into right here. So this is going to be a pretty stiff assembly. But let's put it together here. So this basically said it's a pretty tight fit on purpose. Goes on there like that, and we got to line it up a little bit here. So then 2 socket-headed cap screws go on the side here, and like I said, this will actually clamp around it to stiffen it up. And then the transmission mount goes on here like that. Like I said, I have the option of either with no steel spacer or with the steel spacer below it. I'll mock it up in the car and see which one I like better. And away we go. And here's the final result of all this work. You can see we're looking at the back of the transmission in the power tunnel. As you can see, the transmission mount is sitting horizontal, taking into account all the various angles. And as I mentioned in the last video, I had made a decision to actually angle the transfer case. It's now 10 degrees off of horizontal, which dramatically reduces the amount of intrusion into the inside of the car, and should make the bump in the floor even more minuscule. I think it was the right call. Well, it's enough for this video. I'm very excited that the transfer case adapter is now done. Version 2.0 turned out great, and it's ready to move on. So my next task is to modify the output shaft of the transmission, basically respline it. I'm going to go a little bit different direction than I talked about in the first video, but that'll have to wait for the next time. Once again, if you liked the video, like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.